At the end of the day, number one, we're all people. Number two, we're all cheering for the same team. You know.
Yeah, and you know, I I said when at the end of the regular season, I said good luck Ravens, hope you go far. And people thought that there must have been some filter that said I called their mother a prostitute. They were so offended that I would wish the Ravens luck that they're like, how dare you? Like, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Donut Bag, part of the Pulse Podcast Network and the Pod Hub Network. In this episode, I talked to Donnie Druin of SteelersNow.com and the Pylon to Pylon podcast. It's basically started by a Twitter conversation. A friend of his said, the Steelers are a poorly ran organization masked with great talent. And you know he's right. And when I heard that, we talked a little bit and said, you know what, let's talk about this. And it's been a while since Donnie's been on, and we just went off on basically everything that's going on with the Steelers right now. And you know there's a lot. So we had a good talk. So the Donut Bag starts right now. There is so much going on right now with the Steelers and football and everything. And with me to talk about it is Donnie Druin. He is at Donnie Druin. He's a writer for SteelersNow.com and also from the Pylon to Pylon podcast. Welcome back, sir.
Man, I appreciate it. You know, and anytime somebody has the opportunity to get on the Bag of Donuts podcast, we can call it a phenomenal day.
It's been too long. It's been like a couple months.
Yeah. You know, I think the last time we were on, we were still talking about Le'Veon Bell the last time I was on.
Probably. He basically dominated every single like podcast we did in 2018.
I know that can get like really redundant, but I mean, when you got news coming out left and right, and you got to write the storylines. You know,
the worst part about that was he was doing stuff like he would just put up an emoji or something like that on social media, or he would like somebody's tweets or something like that, and people would go crazy. Or he would do things but not like answer for them, and then everybody else had to answer for him. Every single press conference with Tomlin is, well, did you talk to Le'Veon Bell? Did you talk to Le'Veon Bell? Every single time Ben did an interview or any player did an interview, they always like, did you talk to Le'Veon Bell? It's like he put him in such a horrible spot every single time, and they had to be so sick of it.
Well, it's a good thing now that we could just swap the name out for Antonio Brown.
I know. Now it's almost the same exact thing. Oh my goodness.
It's kind of heartbreaking too, because whenever all the stuff with Le'Veon was going on, you know, you could at least say, hey, Antonio got his money. He worked hard for it. You know, we can at least put our name on that. And, you know, a couple months later, here we are.
I can't believe it got to this point, and it sure looks like Le'Veon Bell Antonio Brown is done with the Steelers. It sure looks that way.
The kind of tricky part about this whole situation is you'll see reports on all sides of the spectrum. I've seen reports from multiple media outlets that said that, you know, he wants to come back, he wants to be a Steeler. And then there's other, you know, media people where they'll say, hey, you know, he's doing this for a reason. He doesn't see himself coming back. And ultimately, it's not his choice. But, wow, yeah, kind of like what you touched on. How did it get this far, man?
It's amazing. And I just don't understand how he can't return calls from his boss and the owner of the team. I can't believe that. It's been, I believe it's like almost 70 million. I don't want to say 69 million because then we're going to start saying nice, but
nice.
Yeah, exactly. You pay someone almost $70 million in their career and they don't have the courtesy to return your call. I don't know. no matter what job anybody has, if you don't show up for a week and then somebody else calls and says, "Oh, he could show up now," and don't return any calls from your boss, you're probably not going to have a job much longer.
Yeah, or at minimum, they'll probably move you to another place, which is exactly the rumors we've been hearing about now. I think what really gets under people's skin is the fact that he didn't answer any phone calls. But after the Mike Tomlin press conference, Instagram video of him and James Harrison. After the Art Rudy II comments, Instagram video of him and Chad Ochocinco. And he's kind of putting this perception out there that, hey, like, I run this, I control everything, when he doesn't. It's almost to the point where Antonio Brown, the persona is bigger than Antonio Brown, the teammate, the football player.
The Instagram thing during the Mike Tomlin press conference, while Mike Tomlin was trying to explain what was going on and put his spin on it, and which I think is a lot of BS, the crap that he was saying. But anyway, you gotta do things for damage control, stuff like that. And while that's going on, he is doing an Instagram video with James Harrison,
of all people,
all people, basically mocking Tomlin. Unbelievable. All he has done has been disrespectful, and it's just sad.
See, I want to know what happened to the interview Harrison was supposed to do with Antonio Brown. I wonder if somebody close to Antonio kind of nudged that before it even got to be a thing.
Here's what I think happened. I think they had a 1 hour sit down interview, Antonio Brown, James Harrison. Somebody forgot to hit record. I think that's what happened. It's like, oh my God. And then they're like, oh, should we just recreate this whole thing? It's like, nah, let's get high. And then that was it.
Let's get high. Oh.
Yeah, it's just, it's crazy that you have James Harrison, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. These are three Steelers legends. These are, some of the best players of the last 20 years for the team. And they've all gone out, and instead of being known for being the best at what they do, they're basically known by Steelers fans. They're hated by Steelers fans. It's amazing. It's amazing that three people could just crap on their legacy like that.
I mean, well, let's go ahead and talk about former Steelers as well. Ryan Clark from ESPN has been throwing his 2 cents in left and right. And then Emmanuel Sanders doubled down on his Ben Roethlisberger isn't a good leader comments the other day whenever he went on NFL Network.
Mm-hmm.
So for a couple of guys, especially Clark and Sanders as well, who were extremely good in their time in Pittsburgh, for those guys to kind of add more fuel to the fire when, those types of players command doing the exact opposite. They don't like stuff getting out of the locker room. They don't like, this drama, kind of like particulating. They're contributing to it just as much as Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell are.
Well, that's a thing we need to talk about. The whole perception of whose fault it is kind of different depending on where you are. Yeah. Inside of Pittsburgh, I think everybody blames either Tomlin or Antonio Brown. Outside of Pittsburgh, the national media, basically it's either Tomlin or Ben, and hardly anybody blames Antonio Brown. And I know I'm exaggerating because I know nobody's acknowledging what he did is good or right, but there is so much hate and blame on Ben because he goes on a radio show and quote unquote throws his players under the bus. And for Tomlin, everybody agrees it's Tomlin's fault for allowing this to happen, for allowing this horrible behavior to continue.
Yeah, and completely. And to kind of touch base on that and spin it forward, it all kind of depends on where you get your news from and kind of what media coverage you get. Because, if you just stick like straightly from Pittsburgh sports outlets, yeah, you're going to want to blame Mike Tomlin. You're going to want to blame Antonio Brown. I think the media in Pittsburgh hates Antonio Brown. I don't think that's a secret at all. And, I think national media hates Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think that's a secret at all. Steeler fans can attest to this. Ben doesn't get the credit he deserves on a national scale at all. He was the league's passing title holder this year. Threw for about 5,000 yards. Nobody's talking about him at all.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Ryan Clark and Emmanuel Sanders, they at least have a unique perspective. They've played with these guys. Yeah. They know what it's like in the locker room. So I hated when Emmanuel Sanders, as soon as he went to Denver, he's like, oh yeah, Peyton Manning is a better leader than Ben. And I hated Ryan Clark when he was with the Steelers. I always thought he was a loudmouth. He is actually a pretty good analyst now. But they do have that unique perspective. But some of these national guys, my goodness, especially during the Le'Veon Bell thing, they were completely clueless.
I have never seen a situation more misreported in my entire life, Joey, than the whole Le'Veon Bell saga. They just don't know how to get their facts straight.
Learn the rules. They're like, well, they should just pay Le'Veon Bell. Do you understand that by July the negotiation was over and they could not negotiate anymore? It's like, well, they should just pay him right now. Like, shut up. Yeah. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh God. It's just so frustrating. And some of the things they say now are just ridiculous. We don't know what happened, and I'm not going to defend Ben because I'm not going there. But we don't know what happened. I'm not going to defend Tomlin. How do we know that how bad it is? This whole thing, and this is what amazes me about all of this. This would not happen at all if Baker Mayfield makes a couple passes in that Browns-Ravens game at the last game of the season. If he makes a couple passes, they kick a field goal, and the Browns beat the Ravens, and the Steelers go to the playoffs. Nobody says anything about what happened.
Absolutely. You are 10,000% correct. And, not even Baker just making plays, but if the Steelers had made plays themselves throughout the season, going 0-4 against the AFC West, not making a couple of key plays, whether it be against the Saints or, any other team that they lost to. People forget the team that went 13-3 a year ago, they pulled out a lot of close games, and a lot of them were won on the leg of Chris Boswell. And when Chris Boswell's not kicking very well, you're forcing your defense to try to make plays. It just can't. And I think in most of the games in this year, the Steelers had a lead in the fourth quarter at some point, and they just couldn't pull out a victory. So, that's exactly the difference between a 13-3 Steelers team with a first-round bye in the playoffs and, the team now who's sitting on the couch like me and you watching the playoffs.
It was amazing, and you're right. It's basically, I don't want to say it's the same team, but it's a similar team. You're right. Yeah. Every single time on that 13-3 team in 2017, everything went right. If there was if they were down by 2 with a minute left, Ben would drive them down the field. They get in field goal range. Boswell makes a kick. Boom, we're done. Same exact scenario in 2018. It
was like
Boswell misses or somebody fumbles or something like that. There were so many moments. Just one play in each game could, if any of those went the other way, the Steelers would be in the playoffs. It was an amazing thing.
Yeah, and I think somebody made a good comparison. I forgot who it was, but somebody had said that the Steelers were the Chargers, the 2018 version of the San Diego Chargers, LA. And it's so right because that team is so talented, but they just couldn't find a way to win football games. And, if you watch Steeler games every Sunday like everybody else, I can only imagine the ups and downs that everybody kind of felt through 2018. Because this wasn't the Steelers team we were accustomed to. And like you said, the team from 2018 wasn't that different from the team from 2017.
Yeah. And so if they made the playoffs, if they were by any of one of those things happened that they made the playoffs, we would not. It would have continued to be with the Antonio Brown thing. It would not have been an issue at all. They would have said, oh, he hurt his knee, blah blah blah. He would have played that playoff game. There would have been no punishment at all. Maybe some stupid fine or something like that, and everything would have been brushed under the rug. But because they didn't make the playoffs, somebody leaked that story to the Post-Gazette or whoever. Somebody leaked that. I don't know if it was Ben. I don't know who